Good afternoon, evening. I'd like to call the work session for September the 9th to order. PM, Mr. Plural. This time I'll turn it over to Dr. Spence for the hours of information.
I'm going to start with Ms. Preston. We're going to do 3A and 3B real fast, and then we'll go back up to the top.
So tonight you have the July financial report in front of you. There's not a whole lot to talk about. For general fund, there were no budget amendments that changed the overall revenues and expenditures. The only big news really is our eSPLOST receipts. We hit another record high in July, and then another one in August. July was $2.8 million, and August was 2.9. Unbelievable. Restaurants are closing down and can't hire people, and we're collecting sales tax money like crazy. Anyway,
But
so
the Amazon order is 2 days later than it was a year.
yeah, I mean, I don't, anyway. What we ended up doing with the cash flow on eSPLOST 4 is the original budgeted revenues were not maxed out at the 112, which was on the ballot question. It was like 110 or something, or 111, something like that. So we went ahead and changed the monthly projections of revenues, and but basically probably end up collecting the 112 before the end of the 5 years. So, anyway.
Now, in that case, didn't the county run into that and they ended up extending it 3 months because it didn't get to that 112 at a certain time?
Well, if we collect the 112 before the end of the 5 years, then you stop collecting.
Right, right. But, did they separate it in quarters or per month?
Well, the ballot question actually says something, if you, max of this amount or collections until the whatever quarter of the whatever.
Right, and they got it within that, and then there was like 2 extra months of collections because it wasn't within that quarter quite yet.
Well, it wouldn't, it does, it's either which whenever you reach first. So if we reach 112, then we stop collecting. Or if we get to the end of that quarter that's on the ballot question that we haven't collected 112, we stop too. So
Is your question what happens when it overages?
Right.
I mean, you can't stop at 112
You
on
don't
those.
get to keep any overages that I'm not aware of.
So if we reach 112 on September 2nd, you know, we don't get reported until, you know, the next month.
I don't know what they do with
And
those
do we
sales
collect?
tax, honestly.
I think to Tank's point, I think the county kept like through the end. I'm not trying to, you know,
So
but
they
I
let
think
you
they
keep
kept
it
through
through
the end of that month or whatever. It was the overage, but they kept it.
Well, that would make sense because I doubt they monitor.
I just don't know
things
how in
closely.
the world you'd have to give it back. But who you give it back to?
Right.
Department of Revenue.
I just
Really?
want to talk
No, we're not
about
doing that.
that now, in case if. I mean,
We'll
the
get an
projection
answer on that.
was-
We'll get an answer on
Yeah.
that tomorrow.
I mean, my guess would be we would have to refund
Yeah.
it.
The sooner we start talking about it, if and when it does happen, then folks know about it.
Yeah, we
We got
can
at least-
be very clear on it.
We got at least 4 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting times for sure.
Yeah.
Any questions on July? Other than that, the only other thing I have is a site license for IXL Learning that needs to be board approved because of the dollar threshold. I can't read that dollar amount.
88,000.
Okay. And that's used K-12. It's a comprehensive learning platform.
2 year,
Excuse me?
2 year, 38,000.
Yeah.
The quote or invoice makes it look like it's just for the ELA supplement and not the whole package. I was
ELAs.
wondering if that's the case. Like, can you go down to the next page? See, it says add ELA access, and it looks like it's just an update to the site license. So, you know,
They had it last year.
well, we use IXL for math and maybe other things, I don't know, but I just didn't know if this was just 88,000 to add the ELA access.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And we use IXL, that's what we purchased it for 3 years ago, I think, when I had the ELA.
Okay, so maybe we burned
But I
off a
think
year
they're
of that
doing it
3.
For all of it. I can get clarification for that. on
Dr.
Tuesday.
Whitehead, can you clarify that?
Okay.
Yeah, last year, when we purchased IXL for math, they, allowed us to use ELA without an additional charge. And we weren't sure how much the schools had used it, so we got feedback that they requested it, so this is adding the ELA with this a pay version.
Okay, so it syncs the terms, so we'll renew everything all at the same time. Okay, thank you.
And we were able to use CARES Act money for this. Anything and everything that comes across my desk, I look to see if it can go on CARES. We actually found out today that the Syntagics that we're doing, a lot of our intercom systems are analog and outdated. That kind of is going to be harder to make it work, but they can. But we can use CARES Act money to update the intercom systems in our schools, and that way we don't have to use eSPLOS.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Dr. Whitehead?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
So, in looking at, some of the information questions that have been coming in, I actually put together a few slides for, this afternoon that, Chris will pull up for us. And then, we have one site that we're gonna kind of look at live as well, when we get to that point. Just wanted to give you the context. We usually, during our updates last year, gave the community transmission index. This updated this afternoon, just about 3:30 or so that includes today's data to show you transmission index there, for context. The next slide shows you the 7-day rolling average, which as of today is 92.6. If you look at the very top, just for some additional information, this same date last year, we were at 22.6.
I did.
During a previous, 2 previous high spikes, if you look at historical data, the 2nd of July 2020 and the 30th of January 2020, that shows you what our 7-day rolling average was for the peak of those 2 spikes that we had. The next slide just gives you just another graphic version. This is from the Department of Public Health website. With cases, again, through today, you see that we are starting to see what we hope will continue as a downward trend there. The left graphic is a blown up version of the most recent weeks compared to the right graphic, which is historical, and you can see the previous spikes in the data and how much higher this one is this go around. Again, cases confirmed for today are 56, and our 7-day rolling average is 92.6. The next set of data, First District RESA has been kind of replicating some data pieces related to COVID, and I know Dr. Spence has had a chance to look at this as well, and that I believe they talked about it with the other superintendents. This actually, if you hover over that last little dot, Chris, down on the bottom, one of the things that happens on this particular data site is that it will tell you what the current data is, and you'll see their last data point is actually yesterday, September 8th. And then it'll show you that same data point, the data from the previous year. So you have a direct comparison there with just hovering over that one dot on the graph, kind of have a historical perspective of that information. And again, this is drilled down specifically to Glen County. First District RESA has done this for all of the districts in First District RESA, and you can see that cumulatively for the whole district, or look at any county within the district.
We can also compare ourselves to other counties. And we've done that, and we're looking very similar to other counties in First District recently, in the fact that can you see the light blue curve? Looks like it's an upside down parabola. That's your line of best fit. And you can see the data is starting to curve.
What's a parabola?
Would you call me?
I was like, what'd you call me?
Upside down bell, it's a bell.
Okay, thank you. I got you now.
Get half.
It's wrong high. I got it.
I do too.
Don't use parabola.
So anyone who ever asked when you would get to use those things, now this is a great opportunity to see when you get to use those things.
And Dr. Whitehead told me this afternoon because I wasn't sure. I knew that this data was not exactly the same as the DPH. This data is pulled by the New York Times based on what we test in Glen County. And the DPH is telling us data that is based on people from Glen County. So when you get a test, they're going to find out where you live, and if you live in Glen County, that's DPH. This is based on the people who come and test in Glen County, whether they live wherever. The numbers aren't that different, but
Yeah.
somebody's going to call us on it, so I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, want to be able to talk about why there's a difference. And again, we're not exactly sure because we're not the people that are creating this graph. But First District RESA has chosen to use that source of information. And when we are reporting data, we are reporting it from the Department of Public Health, specifically for Coastal Health District. And so the numbers will be off some, but this does give you the general trend, and again, gets to show you that same historical context that you would have. So, thank you, Chris. The next slide that we have, we've started again looking kind of deeper at the data, and this specifically is about looking at cases by age over the past 9 weeks. When I talked to Dr. Davis, I asked about the option to be able to look at the data from, around the middle of July so that we would be able to see what was happening with different age groups. And so they typically break their data down into the age groups you see, 0 to 9, 10 to 19, and so forth moving forward. And then each of those bands shows you a different week in the data points. So when you look, I also included the data chart at the bottom so you could actually see the numbers. It was too busy to try to put all those on the chart with it. You can see that we did have an obvious spike in the data moving from the, particularly from the first part of August into that last week of August and into even September. But then as you start looking, we saw an increase in school ages among that time, but now we're seeing that start to decline more so, and you're seeing some increases in some of the older age bands that had seen a bit of a decrease before. So it's kind of interesting to see the trade-off there. For additional information and looking at it, we've added what we have reported to us as far as the number of students in our county that participate in homeschool, and then the numbers that we show are participating in private school. So if you look at any of the school age bands, you could theoretically take that type of number off of our reporting as a percentage. It comes out to about 10% probably of the school age grouping in Glen County, to look at it that way.
The homeschool kids have to fill out an intent to homeschool each year in the state, and then the private school, it's a DE 1111. They have to send that in to Leslie Scarborough if they're going to private school. So that's probably really close.
Yeah. And then the next slide is a breakdown that we have actually requested, which is of a different age group set, which is ages 4 to 10, 11 to 13, and 14 to 18, which gives us a little closer look at what elementary, middle, or high may look like in our county. And this is the breakdown of cases by age for Glen County of those age bands. And again, you can see that last week in August, the reporting was when we had some of our highest numbers in the school age children, particularly in the 4 to 10 age range. Where we're finding this information helpful now is as we're looking at our other data that we're having reported to see where we think our data sources can be confirmed and verified to know the decisions we're making are based off of impact that we're seeing from decisions that we're making. So if you look at the next slide, goes in to show you the percent of positive tests in Glen County. And again, you can see that fortunately that's also starting to be on a downward move as far as the percentage of people who are testing, those people that are testing positive out of all the people that are testing for COVID. And then the next slide is the past week of those age bands just broken out. just within the past week. And where we've been able to take this and the other charts is to move into taking a look at the next set of slides. And if you move on to the next slide, you're going to see this is a snapshot of each of the weeks that we've reported so far. Starting on the right with August 13th and moving to the left to last week's report, showing the count and then what type of impact that made on the overall data. And so you can see some there. So we've gone back to try to compare those numbers that we were just looking at to what the county is seeing as positive rates and what we're having reported to us to see where we may have discrepancies. And so the next slide shows you what that would look like if we took the DPH numbers for last week's report and plugged in essentially, 101 students, which would be less 10% on an estimate for homeschool and private school. We would have been closer to the 2.44 for last week than the 1.75 that we had. And again, that's taking out what we believe could be represented in the data, but it also shows you that there is a gap, even taking that number out of what we had reported and what is being reported for Glen County for those same age ranges for students. And then the next slide shows you where we are today. The left chart being what we have had reported to us for both staff and students, and you'll see at the bottom of the chart what that breakdown looks like is related to classroom, teachers, other staff, and then the number of students that have been reported to us. But if I took that same possible trend of looking at a gap, which looks to be around 100 students in those weeks, and I added 100 students in for today's data, you would see where the difference would be in where we might be as far as actual impact on our populations. And of course, I wouldn't know how those were spread out across schools at this point. So that just shows you the difference of where we might be in looking at decisions moving beyond today. And then,
if you look at the percentage of staff members that have COVID and the percentage of students that have COVID, the percentage of students is very low. And so that's why we started looking at DPH numbers and saying, we want to see what's really out there. We want to use different data points rather than just our data point. Because right now, we're pretty sure we got the staff right. We're depending on parents to call us. And if we do start back to school, Monday morning, we're going to get a bunch of parents calls and go, my kid tested positive for COVID, when they probably haven't done it in the last 2 weeks. And so that's why we put those numbers that way for them.
and that does become a lagging data point for us because we're getting the previous week's data, but it's still something that we can compare to what we had reported. And DPH does continue to send to us reports. If we haven't submitted a case report for somebody and they're in that age band, they are sending to us to say we've had a case for this student in your district. But that does become lagging by the time their contact tracing teams catch up and realize that they've not had a report from us on that student. So it's most helpful to have that timely data and timely reports, but we're limited by what gets reported to us at this point with that information. And then I've had questions before about vaccinations, and again, the last slide just shows you for Glen County what the vaccination rates look like, just so that you have an idea of where we stand with 1 dose and fully vaccinated within our county. And again, that's just based on, I know I've had questions on that as well. So,
If I remember correctly, at our July 27th special called meeting, we were at about 38% fully vaccinated for the county. So, just an observation.
Any questions for Dr. Whitehead?
But that last slide is current, the September 9th?
yes.
And pull it back up. That's reported by the principals. So I feel like the staff numbers, the principals and the directors, I feel like the staff numbers are very accurate. The principals are saying that 107 students have verified that they have COVID, have called them, and they have a verified test.
59 students.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Let's see, yeah.
59 students, I'm sorry. But DPH told us it was 263.
over the last week.
Yeah. So there's a big difference. So even if we take a minimal and say 100, it puts us at 1.4.
But it doesn't tell us if they're private or homeschool, right?
No, but if you assume 90%.
The trend, then you're at 1.4, is that correct?
That's a low number. I mean, if you got 263, 10% of 263 is 26, so you subtract, you're sitting around 230 now. So we put in 207, just to see. But, I mean, that was something we were worried about when we closed down, is how many parents are actually gonna call and say,
Yeah, no, I know.
my son, but so we started checking on that. And,
But if the trends are, I don't know if the trends were close to the same as far as, I know we had like about 10% of staff out, right?
We had,
positive
most we had,
at any given
one of
time?
those are like 141 staff, and that's a little more, no, that's about 10%.
But if you're confident in that number,
Yes.
and that number's true,
I'm confident.
I mean, that's
that right now we
significant.
have
I mean, if the students hold even close to that trend, then you may not be as far off as you think.
Right,
I guess the point I'm trying to make.
right.
I mean, I expected us to be still at 100 or so.
Yeah.
I know when you and I spoke the other day, it was like 80.
Yeah, it was, what we're doing.
I don't know, it
is
was 2 days ago or whatever.
That's the number of staff members that are currently have positive tests and are still out as a
Sure,
result of COVID.
I understand.
The reason we decided that we needed to go to distance learning is because we were getting to a situation, we could see the numbers going up, and we were running out of staff members to cover. But right now, that's less than half of what we had 2 weeks ago, staff members.
Right.
Far less than that. So, and even if we add 100 to the student number based on what the DPH is telling us, that's still low. That 1.41 is less than half of where we were 2 weeks ago. Any other questions? So based on our numbers, it is my plan to reopen school on Monday. We have offered virtual learning. Parents have had a chance to sign up for virtual learning. And Ms. Miller and Ms. Haywood and Dr. Green are going to talk about that in a little bit. And I would like to open up according to our protocols in the yellow category, which means masks will be mandated for at least 2 weeks until we can see if we can get to the green. I do think we'll be in the green based on the trends that we're seeing. And not only here in Glen County, but the trends that we're seeing in Southeast Georgia.
I'd like to open back up, just for the record, I'd like to open back up with mass optional. I really expected these numbers to be a little bit, say, we'll use the word worse, but a little bit higher than they are. And I know that there's some unknown there with compliance as far as reporting goes to students. I'm encouraged by the staff numbers, cutting by more than half, and even adding numbers that you don't really know what they are, probably if they're private or homeschool. Adding those numbers in to only be at 1.4 is positive for me too.
And I told someone one time, we can teach school with 4 kids, but we can't teach school with 4 teachers. And that's my main concern is we've got to be able to keep our teachers and staff healthy. So I understand what you're saying, but I hear the same stuff.
I'm kind of in the middle of where Mike sat in and where you're at on the mask. I know on Monday, by Tuesday, you'll know exactly how many people are actually out of that differential of COVID.
We'll get a pretty good idea.
So my thoughts would be that if you have a better idea, say Tuesday or Wednesday, not to go a full 2 weeks with the option of masks, maybe give it just through that first week to give us time to get the data ironed in. That would be my suggestion. That way, if you on Tuesday, you're like, okay, well, this many people are actually out, and this 1.41, and actually we're still in yellow. But if it's not, then it's green and not green. That's just my suggestion. That way at least you have a solid, because right now we don't have the true number if the parents aren't reporting. But you'll know probably by Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll know exactly how
Right, but we do have a true number of how many people tested positive for COVID between the ages of 4 and 18.
Yeah,
right?
DPH, right. But like I said, even if, who's to say, it's kind of
With the-
slippery slope there, saying if they're all, how many of those are actually private? I know the 10%, start messing with the numbers, but I'm just, by Tuesday, you'll know exactly how many that are in our school system, probably, because I called in, when we're gonna call and check on that student on Sunday.
We'll have a much better idea than we do right now.
On Tuesday or Wednesday. So that would just be my suggestion. I mean, but I'm okay with,
The mask will also be protecting the teachers because, they're with those students 6 to 10 hours per day. They in close proximity. And the teachers, the educators are getting ill also, not just the children, the students, but the educators, the staff members. I mean,
right,
and you could go either way, from the staff to the student or from the student to the staff. So either way, we need to protect our staff and our students.
I personally think that we just need to stick to our plan that we voted on to begin with. I think these are very conservative numbers, and we're in the yellow, the yellow mandated masks. Hey, I want to get to the green, and when we get to the green, we take the mask off. I want to stick to that point, that the plan that we formed and voted on in July was a good plan, and we just stick to it. The community knows the plan, and when they say yellow, we know we have masks. When they say green, okay. When we see red, oh gosh, here we go again. So,
And it'll show that we are following through on what we presented and encouraging everyone to do to protect each other.
which kind of goes back to what I'm saying, because if we open up the yellow, which is what we think it's probably gonna be, then by Wednesday, we'll see if it's in the green, and I think we should make a call before going no home of the week to make the mask optional. Again, that's just one person opinion.
I don't have a problem looking at it on a week-by-week basis. One thing we probably could have done is shut individual schools down or kept, as long as we have healthy teachers, we can continue to roll. But I don't have a problem looking at it on a week-by-week basis.
I sort of thought that's what we were going to do. I know it kind of spiked quickly and suddenly we weren't really,
Well, we said we're gonna look at it, but when we moved to a level, we kind of said we're
Yeah.
gonna wait 2 weeks to move to another level. So.
I just think if you feel like the masks are protecting you from, getting COVID or transmitting COVID, then by all means, wear a mask. If I believe in wearing masks, and I don't have one on, but Marcus has his on, you're not receiving or transmitting. I mean, if you believe in, masks. I sit here every day because I can't wear my glasses because they get fogged up. So something, something's getting out, right? So, I think the plans are great. I agree with Dr. Jurgen. I mean, we have stuck to this plan. But I think that you can tweak plans as well. And it should be up to, individuals, whether or not, if teachers feel like they're more comfortable with them on, then by all means, wear it. And then students are the same. If you want to still mandate on the buses, then okay, but, I don't know.
I think looking at it on a week-by-week basis,
Just still things maybe get a little normal, normaler.
Is that a word?
Any other questions? Dr. Wade, you want to go on down to
Sure.
3F?
Yes, 3F, under 3F, number 2, the Nita M. Lowry 21st Century Community Learning Centers. Just asking you to review that grant award for annual renewal. The state has provided our grant award notices. This would allow us to continue that grant program at Altama, Burles Millette, and Goodyear, where we provide after-school and summer programming for students at those sites that is of zero cost to parents. Students get about an hour of academic work after school, when we run through the school year, and then they transition to the Boys and Girls Club for enrichment activities and an opportunity both to have snack at the school and dinner at the club before they go home. And so this is just the official request for a renewal and your agreement for us to accept those funds to continue that grant.
Can we go back for just a minute, because I just want to be clear, I got a lot of calls, you know, like everybody has, and a lot of calls walking in here today, and probably have just as many as we leave, but your plan is to open in yellow Monday?
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What, have we had any cases where a student has shown up and refused to wear a mask?
Yes, sir.
What are we doing about that?
Well, we had a case last year, and the student was he attended virtual school for a few days, and his parents decided to send him to school with a mask on. I don't know what else we can do. I mean, I don't want to punish a kid because of that, and we may have that. We may have to deal with that.
I don't know, I can't remember if you mentioned when you were talking about the elementary virtual school, did you mention that we did reopen the
Well,
virtual
yeah, Ms.
option
Miller
for
knows
middle
what
and
I'm
high?
talking about that, too.
Yeah, so again, I mean, you know, parents had a few weeks of kids being in school and a couple of weeks of distance learning, and they did have another chance for those that had been
Right.
offered it before to elect virtual.
And I've read, probably like you guys, I've read a lot on the mask, and I don't know. I don't know, but here's the thing, probably the best thing I heard. If it helps 10%, that's better than 0%. But I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. I think people can get up here and talk about science and talk about everything they want to talk about. But you can make numbers look any way. I could have put some numbers up here and made them look really good. But I don't know. But if it helps 5%, that's better than nothing.
And again, the flip side of that again is you don't know the long-term effects of masks on little ones and effective teaching and, you know, wearing the mask in general. So I don't think you know on either side. That's why I feel like it should be a personal decision. If you feel like it's protecting you that much, then by all means wear it. But I mean, nobody can answer the question for me. If I'm wearing one and no one else in the room is, what's the difference? If we're all wearing one or just one person's wearing one? Am I transmitting it or to if I have a mask on and none of you do, am I going to transmit it? Am I going to receive it? I have a mask on, so I should, right? But, so, it's like last year, Marcus, it's like the 3 feet, 6 foot thing. It didn't make any sense, you know? So,
You also threw into the mix.
the little, and I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
one more point is I've got a high schooler and I've got a middle schooler. No one is 100% compliant, Dr. Spence. I mean, you know, they look around the classes every day and it's hard for teachers to still try to take care of that every day, especially with the little ones. But the high schoolers are just as bad. I mean, things fall down, everybody's wearing them like this, you can't breathe in them. I mean, people are pulling them down all day. So what, I mean, try not to make it emotional, and I know all of you have got the same things, you've read the same things on social media. You know, y'all are literally doing, you know, the very best you can. We all are. The teachers are. Parents have done a good job, but you know, I've seen some really nasty things about. I mean, why is it this school system? I mean, you go out in the community, it's like nothing is going on. Sometimes, aside from the hospital, but you go out in public, you go to ball games. I mean, you can't tell me being outside or not, sitting that close to somebody for 2 or 3 hours is not going to transmit COVID if somebody has it. The school system is taking it on the chin for some reason. I don't quite understand or appreciate that, but maybe that's making it too personal. But you know, I don't understand why it's got to be up to us to save the world. It's a personal decision. You walk outside right now, you go to any store in town, you might have a handful of people with a mask on. Why aren't people jumping up and down and screaming at the places of business? And I said this weeks ago when we talked about this for the first time. You know, I got an email, I don't know if all of you got it, but we got one that, you know, accused us essentially of killing a teacher and using particular teachers and a particular race as test subject. And it blows my mind that people would actually think that we would do something like that. Many of us have kids, in the system, know people that do, all of you do. and to even, I know it's emotional, it's been a terrible couple of years, but, it's certainly not your fault that we're going through this as a community, and it's just bothersome. And, I don't think that making masks optional are gonna make it, again, if you think it's gonna protect you, then wear one. So, anyway.
And it's very emotional because if you just look at the Brunswick news pages and pages of obituary, one local business lost 7 employees and 15 still out, I mean, dead. So, a daughter lost both her grandparents within 24 hours of each other. A mother lost her daughter 1 week and her husband the next. So it's very emotional. And yes, we are being held accountable for the students, and we do have a plan in place, which we have been working to the best of our knowledge, and when we get new data, then we've made adjustments. So with the new data that's come before us, and we can continue to follow the grid, then I think we'll be okay. But I just think we have to do what we have to do to protect the students that are entrusted in us and the staff that entrust us on a daily basis. And yes, it is a personal option.
It's not.
It is a personal option if someone chooses to wear a mask or not. But
Not in the school system.
No, well, I'm talking about in general, in life. You choose to be vaccinated, you choose not to be vaccinated. You suffer consequences either way. But as a governing body, and we're responsible for so many other people besides ourselves and our immediate family, they're holding us accountable. And when we make choices, we're not just making it based on my personal belief or yours. We have to look at the entire picture and try to please as many people as possible. And we'll never
But
please all of them.
when our county has the highest death rate per 100,000 in the country, and the highest in the state, that's not the school system's fault.
No, I didn't say
Nobody's
it was the
pointing
school
fingers at
system's
anybody
fault.
else. Nobody's pointing fingers at anybody. It's the school system's fault. We got the highest death rate in the country per 100,000 in the country. That's not these folks' fault. It's not my
No.
fault. It's not my damn kids' fault.
No,
I'll
no,
tell
say
you
it
that
was
right now.
anyone's fault. I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. What I'm saying is we have a plan in
I'm not
place.
saying you are, but that's the perception
We have-
out there, and it's wrong.
We have a
And
plan
so
in place, let's
we
work
need to
it.
start, if we want to start looking into other things, we need to start looking into other things. And what exactly is going on? And why our death rate is so high.
If you read the Brunswick news and look at all those obituaries, and I know all of them are not COVID related, but it's so many. And if you had anyone personally that suffered through the COVID symptoms and illness and recover, great. If they went on to glory, great. But it's something to witness, and it's not easy, and it's very emotional.
There's no doubt about that. So we're gonna open it yellow, we're gonna address it again in a week or 2 weeks.
I will address it next week.
Okay.
Look, guys, in a nutshell, our kids need to be in school.
I agree.
And I want them in school. I will even say this, our principals want them in school, our teachers want them in school, I want them, they need to be in school. And
Parents want them in school.
Yeah, I mean, when I started my doctorate degree, the first thing the guy wrote on the wall was, education is politics. Your community is a microcosm, or your schools are a microcosm of your community. And that's stuck with me, and that's what's happening right now. So, no matter what we do, no matter what decision we make, there are gonna be some people, the emails are coming. And follow the science, here's the examples. If we do the other way, follow the science, here's examples. There are examples after example on both sides, y'all read them. I don't know the answer, I don't know, I wish I'd have been trained in this. But obviously, even our top doctors don't know this. I wish I'd have had a COVID class when I was. Just kind of.
And that's really speaking into the future, right? But it's touchy.
We will check it again next week.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins. I'm gonna let Lori come in here real fast. Since we're on 3B, 3A, the CPA Perkins grant.
No.
My name is Lori Peacock, and I am celebrating my, going into my second year as the CTAE Director for the Glen County School District, and also the CEO for the GICA Foundation. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you the fiscal year 2022 Perkins grant funding for the Glen County School District. The Carl Perkins grant is used for career and technical and agricultural education, also referred to as CTAE, for middle and high school students. The goal is to ensure every child has access to opportunities to explore, choose, and follow CTAE pathways to earn credentials of value. CTAE is a key component in supporting our students' college and career planning, and with hands-on experience helps them answer the question, when am I ever going to need to know this, in authentic real-world situations. I've provided you with a white paper. On the front is the fiscal year 22 Perkins budget, and on the back are the overarching goals we are striving to achieve. We are in the second year of our comprehensive local needs assessment, so that also means we are in year 2 of our overarching goals. We will be rewriting this in early 2022. We receive grant funding in 7 areas. The money is used to improve the CTAE program within the district. This includes in the classroom, in the community through work-based learning, and by supporting our CTAE instructors as advisors for career technical student organizations. Over the last 18 months, the pandemic has influenced how CTAE teaching and learning happens, but it has not affected the why. And that is that it's an integral part of every student's middle and high school experience. Our instructors, work-based learning, and EOPA coordinators continue to provide quality instruction to the best of our ability. The biggest challenge has been in our students' ability to travel to and be involved in competitions. We are hopeful that we will be able to return to the competitions that are the foundation of our CTSOs. So I'm asking for your approval of the fiscal year career technical and agricultural local application. An official approval date is required before Perkins funding is released to the school district. Do you have any questions at this time?
All right, thank you very much.
Ms. Peacock, before you go, Ms. Peacock.
Pardon me?
I don't have a question about the Perkins, I'm fine with that as far as the grant.
Okay.
I did have a question about the virtual aspect of the CTAE and how that's affecting the on hands, you know, which is why everyone wants to go out to GICA,
Right.
and which has been a great option for us for very many years. But what are you seeing as far as the kids, and what plan do y'all have in place for the virtual
I think it's very
stuff?
challenging to do the work that we do at GICA and not have that hands-on experience. However, with that being said, I think our instructors have really risen to this challenge and are really doing the best that they can with the virtual learning. Not ideal. I think that we have a higher failure rate right now because kids that want hands-on learning. They don't want to do it through a computer. So I'm hopeful that we'll get them back in school soon and that they can get back to doing the things that they did love, and that is that hands-on learning.
Yes, ma'am. That was one of my main concerns, because just like you said, I mean, that's why they're out there in the first place, because they want to be in the mix or whatnot. But it's kind of difficult how to show someone, you know, how to plant a plant, or how to, you know, work on a car or a motor, or, you know, construction or whatnot by sitting here at your house,
Correct.
or your, you know, wherever you are, while the teacher or the instructor is at the school. So I was just wondering how it was affecting you guys as far as the actual instruction part.
I think it's a challenge, a huge challenge.
So a major setback, obviously, by not having the kids in class.
We really need our kids in our classrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
In my opinion.
Right.
We really need our
Well, it'd be
kids in our
common sense,
classrooms
I mean-
to do the teaching and learning that we need to do at GICA.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Okay. All right. Well, tell the instructors to keep up the good work. We appreciate what your guys are doing out there. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
We appreciate what you're doing too.
Thank you, ma'am.
Isn't an easy time.
Thank you.
All right, Glen virtual learning. Green, Ms. Miller, Ms. Haywood. Yep.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening. Hope you all doing well. We have several things we want to go over. The first thing is the timeline that we established for schools. Ms. Haywood's going to go over that. And then I'll be able to answer some questions, 612, what we're doing, and our numbers, and then Ms. Miller will be paid by the time. So just to give you some context for our timeline for reopening our window for virtual academy. We opened the window on September 1st to the community. And the window was open from September 1st to September 8th. We used every avenue that we had available to communicate to parents and families about the fact that the window was opened again. The window closed on yesterday, and the 13th and the 14th will be orientation for our middle school and our high school students that have been added to GVA. Those students will then begin between the 13th and the 14th, depending on when schools are able to finalize schedules. Likewise, our elementary will also have the opportunity for an orientation as well. But Ms. Miller will talk to you more specifically about some of the logistics with regard to scheduling and identifying students with elementary. However, they will have an orientation on Friday, September 17th, is required for all families that have been approved to participate. And they will begin classes through Google Instruction on September 20th. And I think one other important piece of information we want to make sure that we share is that our elementary students will be utilizing Google Classroom for their virtual participation. However, our high school students and middle high school students will be using Edgenuity. So I wanted to make sure that we clarify that as well. So I'll turn it over to these ladies to answer any questions and give you all some specifics with regard to planning for the grade spans that they represent. Any specific questions about the timeline and the pacing? I know it is possible that we could be possibly up running Monday for high school and middle school, just because we continue with Edgenuity, which is what we've already done. We're asking parents and families to make a semester-long commitment. Obviously, with high school, students are accruing credit, so we want to make sure that they have that opportunity and the time to do so. And it's just difficult scheduling back and forth from face-to-face to virtual. So we did ask for a semester-long commitment, which is different from the beginning of the school year, where we asked for parents to make a 9 weeks commitment. So those parents will still have the opportunity at the 9 weeks to come back face-to-face in the event that the students haven't had success or they feel more comfortable with being face-to-face. But any students who signed up for this opportunity in the window that just passed will be a semester-long commitment.
One quick question.
Yes.
I know the deadline is passed.
Yes, sir.
Say in the case that someone doesn't want to wear a mask on Monday, and the next option is virtual or distance learning, will it be available to that family?
As of right now, we have established a wait list. When the window closed yesterday, parents called today and even tried to submit applications or sent emails last night. And so each school has a wait list. We're scheduling, and so we have to take into consideration the capacity of our staff to be able to cover these courses. But I can tell you that we're dealing with it case by case for secondary. Ms. Miller, is it any different?
Same for elementary, and I'll speak with the numbers in just a minute, but we're having a full staff out of classes, and so it's.
Right. And then also for middle and high school, the Edgenuity, they'll be doing that from home? And do we have enough licenses for the Edgenuity for those folks?
We don't have an issue with licenses
Okay.
on 612 for sure. We actually did not fill the seats in middle school. I mean, we had 8 kids at Risley, 10 kids at Neewood, at Glen Middle. And so we actually have a lot of space for parents at the middle school level. Secondary, high school probably a little bit different, just because we're scheduled different and they're accruing credits. So there is some space, but we're leaving up to the principals to decide if they can accommodate, because principals did shift their instructors to take on other responsibilities with the numbers that we have.
So we're not gonna run into an issue of licenses?
Licensing will not be an issue at all. It's more capacity and scheduling that could potentially be the issue. In addition to the fact that students with disabilities, we have to be able to appropriately meet those accommodations and with fidelity, right? And so we want to make sure that we can do our job with integrity. So if the IEP team meets and the team recommends that the family return face-to-face, then we have to have a different conversation, which includes a contingency plan. So our special ed department is definitely equipped to do contingency plans in the event that a family just doesn't feel comfortable or safe coming back.
And as far as virtual learning for elementary school in the beginning of the year, you know, we all agree that it's truly not the best way that students learn, especially young children. When they can't work through modules like Ingenuity on their own time and on their own pace, they have to have an adult there facilitating and keeping them on task, setting the computer up for the young students. So with that, although you know, we know that it's best for young children to be in front of teachers, we also want to be compassionate and understanding to our parents and their concerns. So when we saw the rise in COVID numbers, we decided that we would offer the virtual learning for elementary back and then also reopen it for middle and high. And to be honest with you, we had a lot more applicants than what we've ever anticipated, even in the middle and high school areas where they had already had the window open before. So for elementary right now, as you can see on the chart, we have a total of 400 that have been approved. We have 27 students who are pending IEP decisions. So there's a possibility of about 427, and then we have a wait list probably of around 25 to 30, if not more, because applications were rolling in earlier today. So for now, we turn the application link off. However, we are going to be considerate of those people who may want to apply after tonight's meeting. That's something we're going to have to discuss tomorrow as far as staffing goes and the capacity of our teachers, because right now in elementary school, just to serve the 400 that we have through Google Classroom, which is the best mode of presentation for young children, we're pulling of around 20 teachers to be able to serve those kids virtually in virtual settings. And those teachers will be pulled based on the numbers of students from each school that have applied to go virtual. So if the school has 50 students that have applied to go virtual, then that means 2 teachers will have to come from that school to serve those students. As a district, we looked at it and then made the best effort to cause the least amount of disruption to students.
The covenant says denied. So those students are not eligible for virtual based on
Either attendance or their performance during distance learning for the past 2 weeks. They just haven't been logging in or not even participating at all. So the principals made that decision. And that's one thing that I do want to say, since we are live right now to the public, is that if you're a parent and you signed your child up for virtual learning, it is extremely important that your child has a classroom space in the home somewhere. You know, we've had kids laying in the bed, we've had kids riding in the car on their mama's cell phone. I mean, it's just.
We had students, 5-year-olds just sitting there 6 hours alone. So, we've had all types of scenarios that just not conducive for learning, but also just not safe for the students themselves. So we do really want to echo the importance of it being an environment that is going to yield results for the student as it relates to their academics. And so even at the secondary level, our principals are much more strict on the criteria for a senior. We want to make sure that the end goal is graduation. Obviously, safety is a consideration, but the denials were more about the fact that we're an education institution and our job is to educate our students in the best environment. And so that vetting process of doing a denial was essentially to say, we don't recommend that this is the best environment for your kid. Now, a parent obviously can push back, and then we consider that on a case-to-case basis, but we had to vet the decision and tell a parent that we don't believe that it's the best environment, and talk through their academic histories and make recommendations.
And I'll just add, Dr. Green and Ms. Haywood and I were listening earlier to Mr. Mansell's conversation about GICA and how important it is for that hands-on learning, and Dr. Green has a 2nd grade child herself, and she says, have you ever tried to teach a 2nd grader how to manipulate a ruler on a virtual computer screen with a mouse? I mean, it's not easy to do, so you really do have to have somebody that's dedicated to help young children especially. Some of our older children, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, they can manage it pretty much on their own, but the K1 and 2, they're going to need assistance.
But we don't have 400 committed total yet, right?
Yes. That's K-5, that's
Okay.
secondary, we have about 240. So you have two different sheets, you have one for secondary with 612.
I was just adding up the numbers, maybe I'm just looking at it wrong.
Because you have 317 approved and 56
You got
denied.
56 denied, so 317 plus 27 depending puts you at 344, worst case scenario.
Right.
You got 400 applications.
Yes, 400 applications.
Okay, 56 have already been denied, so you're at, even if you approve all the IEPs, you're at 344. You're at 344 worst case scenario, according to this chart, is that right? Okay,
56 have been denied by the
right,
principal.
okay.
So we have those two.
And these are applications before the deadline.
I got you.
And let me, before we start talking about the SCIS file following, this is about 5% of our student population. We started school last year with 35% of our student population virtual.
It was
This is
brutal,
nothing
yeah,
compared
yeah,
to-
no, it was, yeah.
And I did just wanna, if y'all don't have any questions, I did wanna say too that I'd like to applaud our teachers and our administrators and our students and our parents for the past 2 weeks. They have really, I've heard a lot of positive going on with in regards to Google Classroom instruction and how our teachers were able to make that flip from, live in person to virtual at the drop of a hat. So I think they've done a really good job with that as well. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, it's very difficult to turn around and change the whole basis of what you're trying to do, and not only what you're trying to do, but how you're trying to do it. We also need to give kudos to the students that are actually sitting there and making the effort, you know, to, it's hard enough to get them to do it while they're in the classroom, but then when they're at their house at their leisure and they can get up and, you know, nobody's watching them. I can't imagine going through this stuff every day on that level that these teachers and students are having to do it, and just the chaos that it's creating, and still expect them to perform and yield the you know, the actual end result that is profitable for them. It sucks. It's just terrible. So there's no other word for it. I mean, but it's just a bad situation, and you know, I wish it would go away, but obviously that's not the case, and we're just going to have to continue to push through. But you know, again, I applaud even you guys. I mean, as far as down here and everywhere else, I just hope people outside of this building and outside of the school's buildings understand what effort is being made and what sacrifices are being made by these folks every day, day in, day out, and at night, answering calls and emails and stuff after the fact, which is probably even worse than it was during class time, because you can't understand what's going on through the computer screen. But not to bring it all back up again, but you know, I've been saying, you know, for a month that the school system is expected to make all these changes and make all these decisions while everyone else outside the school system just continues to go on and do about their business, day-to-day operation. And to me, it's not fair, but I mean, life's not fair either, but how they expect us or the students to sacrifice 6 to 10 hours a day and make a difference, when I truly believe that it's not the schools that are creating the problem, it's them bringing it to the schools from their outside activities, and that's where the management needs to take place. I think we're doing all we can do, and these students and teachers are making all the efforts that they can to stay safe, but it takes more than just us to fix this and make the community a stronger, more immune spot, and that's not happening from other people outside of our realm. So again, with that dissertation, I just want to say thank y'all to what you guys are doing and the efforts that's being put forth, and again, the students for continuing. You know, a lot of them could just throw in the towel or throw the hat down and say I'm done or whatnot, and it's just going to hurt us all in the long run, but they're actually still, you know, picking up and trying to run through. So kudos to you guys, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
To reiterate, Mr. Mansell, thank you all very much. Thank you to the teachers, thank you to the administrators, everybody involved. But I also want to say thank you to the parents. There are hardworking parents out there that, you know, we were thrown to the fire. Through 2020, And now I realize I'm a much better dentist than I am a teacher. So thank you very much for all you do during the day. The only thing I would wish is there would be some sort of orientation to Google Classroom. My kids can log on, but I can't find their classwork. But, you know, we're trying. I think our community and our parents are resilient. Most people that I've talked to are, hey, let's get through this time. Let's get our kids back in school. We'll do whatever we need to do to get our kids back in school. And, you know, so with that said, thank you. I like the orientation of what y'all are planning for virtual, because that would, I think it'll help the parents out much more than the kids.
That was our intent on that.
Yes. So I think, you know, just like Mr. Mansell said, I wish we could get over this, and, you know, through all of our hard work, we are. We're going to get through this, but we just take it day by day. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We're learning a lot as we go, so.
Yes, we are.
Real quick, Dr. Green, you said that, what was the middle and high numbers as far as,
It should be on, you have,
it's the 112 and 127?
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Okay.
And even after printing this, then I saw the numbers change slightly. I know a couple of principals had some calls where people backed out, they want to do face-to-face, so people are shifting even as, you know, since I printed this information right here about 4 o'clock today. But yeah, this is the most accurate up to date.
I meant to ask this earlier, and it's for Dr. Spence, but y'all may have some input. I'd like to ask for a concession if I could, and as we start back and as soon as we can, could we please reinstitute middle school athletics and extracurricular activities?
That starts Monday.
Did that start Monday? We're going to do that too? Okay. I know we shut it down when we went.
Yeah, that starts Monday. But now the athletics will have to go through an acclimation.
Sure.
And then we'll start games after that.
Okay. It's been interesting, you know, you have a high schooler at home all day on virtual, and then you bring them down to drama practice, or you take, you know, I'm just inside, you know, I'm just like, it's just,
Same with
but
softball,
it's not, they're not even outside, they're inside, and whatever. But thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blackaby.
Stupid.
How y'all doing?
Lou.
Joe Kinsey from Ignite Construction is here with us today, as well as Mr. Tootin. Facilities update. This was just a brief update on where we stand on some of the projects. Dr. Smith, I was taking a few pictures of them. For those of you who may not have been in to see, this is part of Altown Elementary. That's coming in through the security doors and the main corridor along by the courtyard, and then a picture into the courtyard. And a view of what that looks like now. The artificial turf is down in there, so it looks a lot nicer and cleaner in that area at this point. But work continues throughout the building, in the gym, and then the metal fascia on the outside. Mr. Tootin and I met out there, I guess it was last week or week before last, and we'd stopped work on the installation because this wasn't satisfactory the way it was going. And we do have that an approved installation now, so we should be moving forward with that here in the coming weeks. And throughout the rest of the building, just punch list type items that we're continuing working on in the building.
I've been meaning to call you for a couple weeks, and it's probably not a big deal, but I drive by Alabama all the time, you know, a couple times a day, and has somebody been living on site in the camper?
There's one, he stays there, one of the night workers that comes in,
I got you.
he's working at night.
Okay.
He's not living there, he just, rather than having a hotel room, that's when on the construction trailer there.
Right.
And that's,
It was like a fifth wheel camper or whatever,
yeah.
parked there. But he's not there when school's in session, or he is there when school's in session?
He's coming in the evenings,
Okay.
later, and he has been some there during the day, depending on the needs, but they've been trying to do some things.
But does he live in the trailer? I mean, when's he sleep? I don't know, it's just a little weird to me. I don't know if, maybe y'all tell me if I'm overreacting, it was just a little strange to have somebody, I mean, I know they're all approved and everything, I just never seen that, but never seen that before. You know, it's just a little bit, well, I mean, if we're paying millions of dollars to have somebody get a hotel room and move the camper off the property.
Yeah, well, we
But
can-
that's just my,
We can have him do that, it's been there since the.
it's been there a while, but I've been meaning to bring it up, it's just a little strange to me, but, I mean, they're making it, you know.
No, we could definitely have him move.
I mean, if I don't think it's a big deal, then don't, then by all means, if it's something that's standard, then don't, but I just wanted to bring it up, because if y'all don't agree, then it's fine, don't do it on my account, seriously, but
Security.
it was just a little weird to me, that's all I'm
Built-in
saying.
security.
Do what?
Built-in security.
I guess so. That's so weird. Been in elementary school and all, just, I don't know, whatever.
And, as far as Golden Isles goes, we were in the middle of full demolition there. This is a picture of what the classrooms look like at this point. We removed most of the flooring from the classrooms and the ceiling tiles and ceiling grids. So we're in full demolition mode right now. And the final, this is the Glen Academy gym addition. The bare concrete block wall you see in the back, that's the mezzanine area and some of the training room and those parts of the building. And the HVAC units are on top, which I did receive confirmation this afternoon that those will be running tomorrow. We'll have them hooked up and ready to go tomorrow. The part that's not poured there now, that's the classroom portion of the gym, and then over to the right hand side, the Twitter's already poured, but that'll be where the gym actually is located.
I have a question about the gym part itself, and maybe this is more for Mr. Tootin. I can't tell from that drawing, and I don't remember from when we looked at it before, but is there room for seating or bleachers or something?
Only a very few, and we did talk about it before.
Okay.
Permanent bleachers are not a part of this, and the idea was that they would have the rolling bleachers that you could move around, and so there are a few seats, not many, so it's not, it was not conceived as a competition space.
I thought for sports like volleyball and wrestling, we were gonna use it instead of the wood gym, when there was a conflict, but.
And you could do that, the seating would be at either end, and we showed bleachers at both ends when we did the presentation. I have to bring that back as things move from construction drawings to presentation drawings, things like that tend to move away. And standing here, I can't remember the number of seats, maybe 300 or something like that, 200, not many.
So it's the bleachers that, like old school, where you kind of fold them up and they roll out, or they're going to be the bleachers that'll, or it's going to be seating?
They would not be, of course, they could be either one, because they don't exist yet. You could have bleachers anchored to the wall, a small number, but there's just not a lot of space around the building. So the ones that we had selected, Mr. Boudreaux and the staff were, and I think Waters was involved in this, were bleachers on wheels, and I think they fold, and then you could put them in the store and that kind of thing, and so it could be either.
Thank you.
But there is limited space for seating.
But we did make room for concessions, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, it was considered to be, you don't have a concession stand without considering it to be competition. You know, you don't know why you would have. So you're right, Edie, I mean, it should have, you know.
Courtside seats.
Hopefully we'll have as many as we can get in there.
Go ahead, Mike.
So, along with the gym, Mr. Tootin and I have been talking as well. We do need to decide and make a decision on whether or not we want to move forward with some of the renovations on the older portion of the gym. There was a capital outlay application that was done prior to this to receive state funding for basically for the air conditioning portion of this, which supplies both, supplies air to both gyms. But there's also some renovation money in that application. The it's not very much. It's, I believe it's around $14,000 because it's only counted as one instructional unit. But the old gym, which is now approaching 40 years old, does have some needs in there as far as lighting, plumbing, and it is not up to ADA standards at all. That's basically built to the time frame it was built in. So we do need somewhat make a decision whether or not we want to move forward with planning on what our options are there. Now that we're building this portion of the gym, it is the time to roll into that if we really want to do it. Preliminary estimates, it could 700,000 or so would be a very, very rough estimate at this point. That's the starting point when you consider lighting, plumbing. Obviously, mechanical is mostly taken care of here, but I believe there is some mechanical work that would need to be done in the locker rooms as well. Don't know how well the exhaust system works in there or the HVAC. The HVAC, if it even exists in there at this point, because most of it is fed through the gym. We need to have a conversation about that and get some numbers together.
And there's some code issues, and one thing that you may have noticed if you've been in the building, there are no center aisle handrails. At the time that building was designed in the 70s, it was not a requirement. If you've been to Brunswick recently, or any other new facility, you'll find aisle handrails. We surely should add aisle handrails there. So some of the things are real important, and then we just haven't assessed the finally had discussions with Mr. Goodwill about it, but we never got to a decision-making point of what should be done, other than he said that the exhaust systems and the heating and air conditioning system, the original building was not mechanically cooled. So the only air conditioning that's going into the lower space, I'll say, under the grandstand space, is borrowed air conditioning from the arena and air conditioning into the office space.
Can y'all just bring us a list of the needs and rough estimates?
Yeah,
Sure.
We
can start that conversation.
Preliminarily, we've started that conversation, so we need to do a little more thorough assessment of what actually needs to occur in there.
Anything else? Any questions?
The metal on the outside of the press box,
Yes.
when is that supposed to be?
We're hoping about the middle of next week we'll be getting dangerously close to being finished. I think most all the metal arrived day before yesterday, and they've been hanging as they could. Today was a little bit windy to be up there for the early part of the morning, but they did get some work done on it. But we're anticipating the middle of next week it should be pretty close to. Our goal is to definitely make sure it's done before Brunswick Glen Academy game, but we shouldn't have any trouble making that target.
Thank you.
Couple more items. We talked about the academy and Alabama. So again, Golden Hours are in full demolition. With that, as you saw in the pictures, Neatwood Middle School and Overbrook Point. We're still finalizing the plans for that, and we hope to begin the classroom work on those around the 1st of October. Will be our target date for that. And as far as St. Simon's Elementary, the site work for that is ongoing, but we're getting close to that. But we also have, we'll see in a minute, the GMP for phase 3 of that work as well.
You want to go on down this resolution, St. Simon's Elementary, and just hit your action items? 3C.
This is actually the GMP for phase 3 of St. Simon's.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be 3E.
3E.
On the
Okay.
which is an action item. We've been working with McKnight Construction to finalize a GMP for this phase of the construction, which is essentially the vertical construction minus the steel and concrete, which we have already done. Yeah, so our phase three guarantee maximum price at this point is $9,591,392.06. Which again, this includes basically everything you would see in as the building is being constructed. It's the exterior finishes, doors, windows, mechanical, plumbing, fire suppression, intercom, all of those things, toilet accessories, everything that would be required for a school. Joe, do you have anything to add on that, or?
No, we had the bid, 2 weeks ago with you and John, and we've gone through all the bids and vetted the subs and feel like we've got a pretty competitive price.
Is this the new building and plus all the wings?
This is the new, it's roughly 40,000 square feet, 2-story classroom addition.
Just for the addition,
That's
not
correct.
the renovation for?
That's correct.
Yeah, this will be the building that takes the place of the wings that we're going to tear down, which is the gym and the one in adjacent to it. Not the 1943 building that's on Ocean Boulevard. That's the one that will be modernized and renovated.
I would remind you, we have it in phases. Phases 1, 2, and 3 have now been awarded. They are all related to the 2-story classroom building. Now, there's site water will come through, and that would eventually relate to all of it. But all that is in the quadrant where the 2-story classroom building. What has not been awarded yet in terms of GMP is the new gym, an addition, administrative addition to the 1943 building, and a new kitchen in the 1943 building. And we're calling those phase 4. And what we're calling phase 5 is the modernization program of the 1943 building. The modernization program we're treating in terms of the state submittals and things as a separate project because it is a separate state-funded project. It's a modernization program, and they're paying a substantial amount of money for that portion. So those will come as quickly as we can with a phase 4, and that will be the cost of the gym, the administrative addition, and new kitchen, and the demolition of the buildings that are in the path of those. And then the final will be the modernization program. I think you're going to submit the modernization, is it this year or next year?
No, we've got it on the agenda here.
Okay, so the modernization will be funded separately and awarded as a separate contract in the eyes of the state. It will just be another phase in terms of the construction process.
With this bid, are we still within budget for the project?
Maybe you have a better answer to that than that. Since it's done in phases, we don't have that final modernization piece worked out, so it is not out of tolerance from where I would envision we would be at this point.
We're determined, and of course, projecting numbers into the future, realize that we'll be awarding the contract for the modernization 2 years from now. It's difficult to predict compared to the original budget. But Joe and I will update that as best we can. Going from my recollection of some rough numbers which I put together to kind of check where we are, the dollar value awarded represents, and I think I'm right in this, about 64% of the budget. I want to be sure that I'm not backwards on that.
I think it might be 60%.
I think it's 61% of the budget. That is exactly right. 61% of the budget and 64% of the square feet of construction. Does that make any sense?
Yes, sir. At the next meeting, can we just get an update on where we're at,
Yes,
budget-wise?
I'd say it's fairly, it's comfortably close right now. The variable is awarding in stages. The next stage is 18 months out, and likely we'll have some cost escalation in 18 months.
Right.
keep going.
Well, any other questions on the DMP?
Is that document within our assembly system? Okay,
Not yet.
Okay. thank you. I just couldn't find it.
It's hot off the presses. It's just-
Gotcha.
So the state money that Mr. Stevens was referring to, we have to do a capital outlay application for that money, which would be for fiscal year 2023, so we definitely don't access that money until next July. But we go ahead and do the application now, and we actually physically start doing work now. You just can't be reimbursed until after July of 2023. So this application, if approved, would need to be signed after the board meeting. But if you scroll to I think about the last page. Well, we can do it off of that one right there. So, contained within this application is money for renovation, and money for modifications, and money for new construction. The modification money, though, which is the second line down, about 1.1 million, most of that is devoted to the modernization of the 1943 building. The new construction portion of that, $782,000, is money, and it's all based off the square footages that the state allows you, a cost per square foot for construction of the gym, the kitchen, and the cafeteria. We're required, due to what they consider to be the wealth of the school, of the district, we're required to participate at 20% of that, so they basically take 20% off the top of that as considered to be our required local participation. So the eligible state funding in this application is the $1,636,000 you see there, which is the eligible state funds. So this application is for us to receive $1.6 million from the state for the construction of the gym, construction of the cafeteria, construction of the kitchen, as well as modernization of the building. An additional item that you have on the agenda is for a resolution for modernization of the 1943 building. As Ms. Tu said, this is a kind of an unconventional project in the way it's being done in phases. In addition to that, this is an unconventional way to do an application from the state's perspective. Because if we were going to apply for this, typically they like for you to do this application, do the resolution at the time that you do your 5-year facility plan, which I believe y'all approved back last spring, if I'm not mistaken. But I've had a lot of conversations with the DOE. They are allowing us to move forward with this application. It sounds like that everything is all on board. It has to be approved here first before it's approved at the state level. But in the end, if it's approved by our Board of Education and then the state Board of Education, the total application would be for $1.6 million. And that would be reimbursed after the construction. So along with the project cost, this was money that was not anticipated being in the overall budget at the time that the budgets were formed. This would be there to help offset some of the costs, particularly for the modernization part of the 1943 building.
I have a question further down on this same page, under the heading of project funding levels, where it gives 100%, 80%, 60%, 40%. What is all of that? Because it looks like our funding changes at 40%.
The reason why this money is not available until July 1st of 2023 is this approved application would be included in the budget submission at the state level.
Right.
For
next
General
year.
Assembly meets next year. They vote each year as to what level to fund capital outlay at. It has historically never been funded at anything other than 100%, but they do have the option of funding it at 80%, 60%, or 40%, and for whatever reason, it's always been included on these forms as to what your amount would be if they chose to only fund it at a particular funding level. But again, historically, it's never been funded for anything other than 100%.
Okay. But it could be, it looks like as low as just under 1.3 and the 40%. If for some reason they
Yes,
approved
if by
it
some
at that
chance
low.
they decided to not approve it at that particular level.
Okay, thank you,
But
that's
again,
helpful.
It's always been approved at 100%. And it wouldn't just be Glen County Schools approved at a different percentage, it would be they decided at the state level that all projects were only going to be funded at 40%.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
All right, thank you, sir. All right, takes care of that. While Ms. Seals is on the way in with a hiring update, I've been speaking with Mr. Rentz about possibly moving Coastal Plains Night High School to GICA from RACS. There's several reasons for that, but the major reason that I would like to see it done is so that we could possibly get an MOU with GICA like we have with McIntosh County, so those students could attend classes in GICA too and increase that enrollment. So that's something that I've been thinking about, and I wanted to bring that in front of you and let you talk about it if you had any questions.
Transportation?
That would be up to Mr. Rentz. Those students attend the Coastal Pines High School. I think he's been talking with Dr. Simmons and Ms. Preston about either renting a bus or he's going to buy a bus, but he's looking at transportation yet.
I know we did that years ago with the Night High School at GICA, and there were some issues initially. Have you talked with Dr. Devin Hart or?
Oh yeah, he's been involved the whole time.
Okay.
And he's been walking around looking at possible places. So.
Yeah. And kids were getting up, wandering, and all that. And do we have night classes for the technical college at GICA right now?
I don't think they're there right now, but we do have space that we had leased to them just in case they do have them.
Right, because I think there was a issue with that. And, I guess finding somebody, Ms. Haywood, that was there when those issues came up, trying just to make sure we don't have those issues again. That's all I would recommend.
Understand. All right, Ms. Seals.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, every year, our Human Resources Department provides a hiring update that kind of ends the previous school year and looking into this to the current school year. What you have tonight basically talks about what happened during last school year at the top. Notice we had a total attrition of 113. Things that I wanted to really point out, the retirements number from last year. Notice we went from 17 in FY20 the year before to 33 last school year. That had a lot to do with, I believe, the pandemic, and people stayed in place during 2020, at the end of 2020 school year, and then kind of seeing how the economy and everything was going to roll out. And then this past school year, we had more people retire. Also, to the total certified staff that we had last year, when Dr. Spence came on board, he froze hiring. And so you'll note that we had fewer positions last school year, certified staff positions. So that was at 927.5, whereas the year before we had 957.5, which somewhat elevated our attrition for last school year. Because of the increase in retirements and the decrease in the total number of staff. We were at about 12.2% in regards to our attrition rate, which is still below the state average. State is around 16% with the last report. This past school year, we asked you, for this school year, we put over 105 new hires on the board reports up until August. So that was quite a few to ask you all to approve. And then the bottom number basically talks about what we had remaining after the August board meeting. We had 5 elementary school positions, 3 gifted education positions, which included part-time positions as well. 2 special education positions, 1 JROTC, and a .5 physical education position. That position is really a Morning Star position. They typically have someone in our grant with them. They have funding for someone who does PE specifically, and that is in that memorandum of understanding with them. So that was a total of 11.5. We have had recommendations that will come before you next Tuesday night that would take this number down as well. So please note that these numbers do not include counselors from last school year. Don't include counselors, don't include principals who may have retired or anything. These are just teachers.
Any questions for Ms. Seals? Thank you. The last thing I have is COVID leave extension. We extended it through the month of August, and I would like to extend it through December the 31st for those people who have not used their COVID leave. Any questions about that? All right. That is all I have.
Alrighty, that brings us down to executive session. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Gibbons, and a second, please.
Second.
By Ms. Sams. All those in favor? John, you still with us? Lost you somewhere. We'll call you back there.
Stay out here.
What's that?
We're gonna stay out here.
We can go in the back end. We're gonna stay in here. Scott? Don't matter.
Turn that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way we can socially distance.
Yep. He's ready. Jurgen made the motion, second please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gibbons, all those in favor? We are back in open session at 7:12. All right, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Jurgen.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gibbons, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Assuming, John, you're raising your hand on the other side of the line?